Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, with Crimsix and the New York Subliners miraculously qualifying for the World Championship at their home major. He also gave a bit of a tier list for players so far this season a few days ago, mentioning the Opta guys, where they currently stand, the fact that Dashie is not on the same level of Cellium in his opinion, and saying that Scump might actually be a C tier player if not for trying to get some subs to his Twitch channel. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Oh, a nice video here for the Paris Legion highlight reel in their series loss against FaZe. Pretty much the only highlight reel I imagine they can put together for themselves this season. Now, I wanted to mention some of the OG players as well. Dino does officially confirm unrestricted free agent for Modern Warfare 2, so he is going to make the return, it seems, to the Challenger side. Is it a good idea? I'm not really convinced, to be honest, but it might work out for him. It's funny how he clarifies unrestricted as well. He's definitely not been signed to an organization, so the unrestricted part I thought was pretty self-evident. But let's talk about this from nature as well, because this got a lot of traction yesterday. I know people like to say competitive Call of Duty talent has got better over the years, but you literally had me playing against Karma, Eggs, Crim, and TP on the same team in the prime of their careers. Think about that for a second. He goes on to say, meanwhile, Scump was dragging me over the finish line with his last dying breath, breaking our point of will. Good times, he says here in the replies. And even as Doug says, people like to think that as time goes on, you're washed. It's simply a relentless commitment daily. Some dudes just don't want to do that anymore. 100% facts, says Jacob. I guess he feels himself in a similar boat. So it's an interesting question, right? Of course, we're going to talk about Scump here in a second. How much does age matter in Call of Duty? It's always one that goes around. Is the fact that Karma, Aches, TP are no longer competing more to do with their drive rather than to do with their actual ability falling off? Because, Doug's still one of these rare breed of OG players, in a similar way to Scump, really. Because, Scump and Doug have been around a similar amount of time competing in Call of Duty. That still has that incredible drive and commitment to get up every single day and commit to being the best Call of Duty professional player they can possibly be. Or is the talent nowadays just significantly better than it was back then? Because I agree that some of the teams back in the day were absolutely stacked, and some of the players were, I think, honestly, nowadays, there is more of an even skill distribution between the league, as in, back in the day, some of the teams you would get compared to the Complexity Dynasty, they would go into groups and just destroy teams that were of a far less caliber than what we have as kind of the average competition today. But at the same time, in terms of skill ceiling, I don't really think there was that much difference between these guys back in the day and the top players of the present day. And what also would be rather interesting, as Big Time even mentions, he's been kind of getting back into Call of Duty lately, which I love to see. And as he says, somebody's got to set up a tournament on any game in the COD 4 through to Black Ops 2 era. Old pros versus new would literally be pissing on everyone, even with arthritis. At Hitch, at Joey DeLuca, that being Merc, of course, JCat Ramaray, to try and get this stuff together. So hopefully Hitch can put something like this together, because it would be fantastic to see again, honestly. And this is just to mention, because this is, I believe, they did a Modern Warfare 2 throwback tournament. Not exactly sure if this was last year, the year before, exactly when this was. I kind of forget, but it's usually an off-season thing that they do. We've got Sender, Twiz, General, and Rabbit Hops, whoever that is, and one of the TCM guys maybe on the other side of things. And this is the team of Aches, Merc, Ramaray, and Scumbag, big time there. And Aches is drawing 74 kills here on. I think this might be Aches' favourite map of all time. Is this not Scrapyard, Demolition, or maybe this is another map? I can't quite tell by this. I didn't really play too much Modern Warfare 2 at all. I just watched some in tournaments like this. But this is only a couple of years ago when Aches was just getting bopped out of the league in Modern Warfare on Los Angeles Guerrillas, goes back to Modern Warfare 2 and drops 74 kills, right? So we'd be excited to see something like this kind of happen again. And even I believe, as Nameless says right here, we did it recently. Methods ago got spit on. I'm an old pro who was costed by the new ones, right? So that's the thing. Some of these older Call of Duty titles, new pros versus old pros, just to see, is there really any skill differential if these guys just got it on these older Call of Duty titles? I'm sure that Hitch has got something in the works here for the off-season. Pretty sure he even mentioned not long ago that that's exactly what he's got in the works. And I wanted to say this thought was kind of funny here for the COD League. Thank you for a competitive year. Can't wait to see you all back next season. Of course, Paris are no longer going to be Paris anymore, but they give a thank you message here to LA Guerrillas, the Florida Mutineers, the Paris Legion, and also, of course, the Minnesota Rokkr that failed to qualify for the World Championship. Kind of funny, really, that they did this. Okay, eliminated. Thank you, guys. Okay, they give the finish, they give the prize money, and CDL points 20th, best major placement, top 8. So congratulations to Paris, I suppose. In fairness, the same best major placement also for the Minnesota Rokkr, only top 8 this season, finishing 11th, of course, in the standings. But just the way they do this almost looks like they're somehow releasing these teams, or just making them all free agents or something. Thank you, guys, but you're off to the ballpark. But look, maybe that's exactly what some of these teams will do going into next year. Now, the All-Star voting, I believe, is still underway. If you guys want to get involved, probably the CDL website, if you can possibly manage to navigate the CDL website, which is the challenge enough in and of itself, then you can probably vote for your All-Star teams. Now, this is kind of what Breaking Boy came up with here. I feel like this Team A is relatively clear-cut to me. Cellium and Dashie have to be here. Honestly, having these these two on the same team would be incredible. I'm not exactly sure what the comms would be like, where the leadership comes from on a team like this, but like it would be exciting to watch, there's no doubt. Like Cell, I guess, is the flex technically, even though he is a bit slower, and I definitely think that him and Dashie would take kills away from each other. But then Shotzzy and Pred as your SMG line, like that'd be pretty nasty. Again, they play kind of similar, but I'm sure they could work it out. So anyway, this is probably, to me, in terms of all-star players this year, Shotzzy, like Dashie, Cell, and Pred, I think is a relatively clear-cut first team. The second team is a bit more interesting to maybe choose the second best AR flex and, you know, SMG type players. I feel like having Hydra here makes sense, having Simp here makes sense. Like Sib maybe is the second best flex in this game. It's kind of weird to say really, because Sib, like, okay, they've won an event or whatever, but who actually has been a better flex this year than, like, apart from Cellium, of course, than Sib? Like, you know, maybe no one really, unless you want to put Paul X in that conversation, but I think that's a little bit difficult to say. They haven't won an event of quite the importance that Sib and Seattle managed to achieve at Major 3, and then Attach being the main for this second team is also rather interesting. There might be other options there as well, but so I thought this one is more up for debate, but still I thought it was reasonably valid, all things considered. So this is what we didn't get to, unfortunately, during the Major itself, because, well, someone has put this out right before the Major, and yeah, we haven't got the chance to talk about it yet, because there's been plenty of other things going on, of course, this past weekend. But Crim comes out with a CDL player tier list. He pretty much did this last season at the end of the year, ranking all the players, and there was some drama about that, as you might well expect. This time he goes through, ranks pretty much all the Boston guys down here in the F tier, a few players he doesn't rank, Clayster, Illy, he didn't really get too much time to play against him, and some guys like that. But the rest of the guys, he ranks them all in terms of different tiers. He says effectively C and D are like the standard tiers to him. That's like your standard player. Anyone B and above shoots a bit different. When you play them, when you play against them, it just feels like they're a bit different, and anyone in A and above is like, yeah, this guy's different. And also Cellium, he just puts S completely on his own. Now, as you might well expect, what he had to say on Optic was probably the spiciest of the lot, and I'll show exactly that on Dashie, Shotzzy, and Scump especially.
Dashie, hot take here. I don't know what's with FaZe and why they can't beat Optic, because you look at this, they should. Well, I haven't done this yet. Ender, dude, I have not even played against Ender in this game. I actually haven't. We haven't played them we played them in matches, but Ender didn't play. You know, and after we get DFR'd at a tournament, double first rounded, I don't watch. Ender, I don't even know. I haven't even played against you. Scump, I gotta be real careful with this one. Dude, should I just do S to get subs? Yeah, we're going. Sorry, so. Wait. There we go. Subscribe to twitch.tv/Crimsix. Psych! No, I'm kidding. Okay, off the record, here, this is where you cut this out. One, I don't want you to cut this out. Since we're, you know, talking about reputation here, we're talking about fans, we're talking about followers. There we go. Scump's an A. Shotzzy, quit hosting me. I hate you. That doesn't sit right. I don't know. See, it's so hard to judge Optic because I can think of 3 times this whole year where we have played them. Once in a scrim, once in a league match that was with Prolu, and once at the start of the game. That was it.
So we did the same thing last season, right, when he went through like intangibles and impact effectively, and looking through where some of the players exactly ranked, and he put Dashie at like 25th or something, and that definitely had its fair share of spice that created. And also, as you can see right here, Scump was 11. I'm pretty sure like Scump was the highest player in Crim's at last year's rankings for the Optic guys. He had Envoy lower, Dashie lower, Formal lower as well. But this year, these were his rankings as he came up with at the end of the video. So yeah, F tier, he had Neptune down here, of course. He put himself, I believe, in the D tier. I'm sure this would change a fair bit after the most recent major, because this, of course, was happening before the major. So, you know, I'd imagine that some of the Thieves guys, Kenny especially, might somehow move a little bit up. Even putting Attach in the D tier, I thought was really interesting, actually, just because I guess he doesn't really rate Attach that much, regardless of like what his numbers look like this season. I do rate Crimsix's opinion rather highly in terms of like who he thinks is a good player, because if you look up in the A tier, he actually decided to put Afro up here in the A tier. He put him up right towards the end, which I thought was interesting, because Afro hasn't really been a person that I've considered so much in the free agent discussion so far, but like he is probably a free agent this season. And if, let's say, I don't know what organization might want to play with him, but let's say Crim loses Hydra goes to LA Thieves or whatever, like that's just a theory, of course, that we've had for quite some time. If Crim rings up Afro and says, look, like we want you to be a part of New York, like will Afro go and do that, right? Will he want to leave London? Because I feel like London is solid, but are they really a championship contending organization? I don't really think so. And clearly by the eye test, he just thinks that Afro is honestly kind of built different with some of these players. He actually rates Paul X as the best player on his team right now, Crimsix. I wonder if Kismet would move a little bit higher than the C tier. tier based on the performance this past weekend. But looking really at the Optic and the FaZe guys, right, he says that, okay, yeah, Cellium is on his own up there in the S tier. It's Dashy down here in the A tier. I don't really think he gave too much thought to the order, really, of the teams within the particular tiers. So I wonder whether, you know, Dashy would be second tier right to the top, or whether he would be a little bit further down. And Crimsix didn't rate Dashy particularly highly last season. This season, he does believe, I guess, he's more impactful. But still, he does seem to believe that Cellium is significantly a better player this season, more impactful on a consistent basis, which is rather interesting. Shotzi gets the A tier, and then Scump had to kind of decide where Scump goes. He was honestly gonna, like, he was gonna put him in the A tier. Eventually, he put him in the B tier, but he was actually gonna think, well, maybe he'd actually a C tier player this year, which I thought was rather spicy, just because at the end of last season, Scump was considered to be the best player on Optic, which I think was understandable. At points this season, that has been the case as well. And even around about when he was making this tier list, I imagine before Major 4, I would have thought that Scump would have been slightly higher on the rankings, because at this point, Shotzi wasn't playing that well. Scump was looking for a time like their best player. This past weekend, though, that wasn't necessarily the case. Scump had a couple of bad series, and there has been a big question actually raised about the SMG duo of the Optic guys lately, as to whether, like, okay, what's happening? Who's getting in the hard point? How well are they actually working together? Because Shotzi's taking a lot of routes, right? He's going for a lot of, like, flanks and stuff like this, and is it, like, maybe not putting Scump in the best position? So it's an interesting situation, really, because Scump's usually always there or thereabouts in terms of SMG players. I think he still has been on the whole this season, but Crimsix doesn't necessarily see that. Was probably going to put him in C tier, but realised he might get roasted too hard to put him slightly higher than that. So definitely intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section, but I'm sure there's more we could dive into here. But there's so many players that we could possibly mention that we are going to leave it there for now. Just wanted to mention Boston real quick, kind of a season recap so far. Consistent in hardpoint, 29 and 26 in their hardpoints. They control 13 and 19, although I think that's got somewhat better lately. Their search and destroy very average as well. So they've been very consistent across the board this year. The map pool is decent. They play Thieves at round 1 of champs. That's far from easy. If they somehow win, though, they can make a run. But they lost to Florida Mutineers first round of, well, this major this time around. So I don't really have too much faith they can beat the Los Angeles Thieves. And speaking of players that often fall off, this is kind of the thing. Afro was actually mentioned on this list here, but I feel like it's more of a London thing in general. These are players that have the largest drop-offs, thanks to Brian's stats, between online qualifier KDs and LAN at KDs this season. Gizmo has by far the highest, a 1.10 online, a 0.86 on LAN. That's pretty mega. Gizmo has a similar story, but I feel like in general it's just the team underperforming more and putting Afro in more difficult situations. Paul X is in the similar boat. Gunless, Asim, Sib actually rather interesting. Accuracy as well, surprising to me. 1.0 down to a 0.91. Illy, TJ, Halley kind of at similar numbers. So these are technically the onliners, if you were, and these are the LAN players the other way around. Now, in fairness, this might not necessarily mean that these players just having to turn up way more on LAN, but it might more be the fact that they're at a significant disadvantage online. So, like, I mean, Sasha isn't on this list. I would expect Sasha to be on this list normally, but I think this list is populated by a lot of teams that seem to be at a disadvantage geographically, effectively. So if we look at Drazah right here, he has a 0.94 online, 1.05 on LAN. Envoy 0.95 online, 1.0 on LAN. And the same with Kenny, right? So 3 out of the 4 guys on Thieves, based in Los Angeles, of course, in theoretically a worse internet environment, get significantly better on LAN. And a similar story, actually, if we look at the even the Florida Mutineers guys. We've got Awakening, Skies, like Vivid as well. Like, they seem to do much better on LAN than they do online. So probably there is a significant internet disadvantage based on these statistics from playing out of suboptimal situations. And actually the biggest one here, I think, is Jimbo, a 0.79 online, but he has a 0.98 on LAN, right? And they've got him playing out of Canada on terrible ping as like one of the entry SMGs, which is never going to be an easy time. So it just goes to show, like, even guys like Nature have probably got to think, well, look, if we're putting ourselves at such a significant disadvantage playing online, we probably got to move to Texas. But that's a story, I think, for another day. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.